The Holocaust was a European genocide that took place from 1941 to 1945 in Nazi-occupied Germany and other parts of Eastern Europe, including Poland. The Holocaust was led by Adolf Hitler and set to exterminate or kill all Jews and various other minor groups, including homosexuals, gypsies, disabled people, and people of color in Europe. The Holocaust ended after Russia invaded and Adolf Hitler committed suicide, leaving Europe with 6 million less Jews.
The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was the largest revolt to ever occur in the Warsaw Ghetto, located in Warsaw. The ghetto was the temporary home to more than 400,000 Jews and others. A group that was 30% of the Warsaw population was squeezed into just 2% of the space. The uprising took place from April to May of 1943, lasting for about a month long.
The ghettos were Nazi-controlled territories meant to temporarily house thousands of Jews into a too small space. Ghettos across Europe were Reinhard Heydrich's first step to ensure the success of the final solution. The final solution was a sinister plan created by head of the Third Reich security branch, Reinhard Heydrich, to exterminate all Jews and other unwanted groups from Europe.
These groups of people were called undesirables and ranged from homosexuals, gypsies, people of color, disabled and homeless people, and many others. Reinhard's plan of extermination? Execution. Reinhard planned to kill Jews by sending them to death camps before shortly being gassed.
Others were luckier, but still unlucky, and didn't die immediately, being sent to the concentration camps to labor away in brutal and harsh conditions, leading many to die from overworking. September 29th, 1939 was the day the Nazis occupied Warsaw, Poland.
It was only a month later, on October 29th, where labor was required within the ghetto and enforced by law all men aged 14 to 60. Both of these days, however, didn't compare to what would happen a little more than a year later. November 15th, 1940, marked the day Warsaw went silent.
The newly formed Warsaw Ghetto was zipped shut, closed from the outside world. More than 400,000 Jews would have to face overcrowding and lack of food and water. To relieve people from such small portions, many would smuggle food and other resources of needs into the ghetto. Some would even smuggle themselves out of the ghetto.
Perhaps the most common form of resistance took place in the form of smuggling basic supplies over, under or through the ghetto walls by the Jews in the ghetto. Estimates suggest that between 80 and 98% of the total food intake of all inhabitants entered the ghetto this way. Without this form of resistance, thousands more people would have died from starvation.
Although many would smuggle, it was very dangerous and also had the risk of getting caught by German guards that constantly patrolled the ghetto's walls. Vladimir has become one of the most famous Holocaust survivors, notorious for smuggling dynamite through the ghetto walls into the ghetto to help contribute towards the uprising.
I would like to tell you how I escaped smuggling into the ghetto dynamite. This was a different time. It was on the smuggling point of Plac Paryżowski, and over there a group of Polish smugglers smuggled in food into the ghetto. And of course Poles, and this was a way of making a living for some smugglers.
Quiet until 12 o'clock. Alarm, the Germans are in our building. Luckily, it passes and we sleep on. Our schedule is turned upside down. We sleep during the day, cook and eat at night.
The act of smuggling was an extremely difficult task to correctly pull off and required multiple people in order for the operation to run smoothly. Vladka was known for her smuggling of dynamite into the Warsaw Ghetto. Vladka was able to assemble a group of people to help smuggle dynamite into the ghetto. The dynamite was wrapped in greasy paper to make it look like butter.
However, when Vladka was climbing up the ladder to finalize the smuggled goods, she was blocked off from re-entering the ghetto since there was heavy gunfire.
As the situation worsened, Vladka realized that the only way to get down was by a human ladder. Meade would finally bring the dynamite to the factory. That was one of the unique stories that Vladka had to share during her experiences in the Warsaw Ghetto.
Many groups were formed by the Jewish people in the ghetto. These groups were based around resistance of the Warsaw Ghetto. The most profound group was the ZOB, meaning Jewish Combat Group.
The commanders of this group were Morvetzai Onilevich, Yitzhak Zuckerman, and Marek Edelman. The commanders of these groups were hoping to lead the resistance. Sol Lieber was a Jew in the Warsaw Ghetto and contributed to one of the resistance groups.
Then I met this guy in the street. I say, Feifke, what is all about this? He says, we have an underground and we're going to fight the Germans. I know we're not going to win, but we're not going to go anymore. I say, would you like to join? I say, if you'll explain to me, I will join. But he says, don't tell your sisters. This has to be a secret, because if people know, you know what's going to happen. Well, they blindfolded me also and took me to a place I also didn't know where I'm going, where I'm coming. And I was explained. The second man to Onilevich. Did you hear about the man of Onilevich? He was the organizer of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. They gave me a gun, and they explained to me what our duties will be, that we'll meet once a month. And if we need something, we could phone, not to the organization's bunker, but to a private home, and they will relay the message.
The Nazis started the deportations of Jews in mid-1942. On July 20th, the Nazis ruled that all non-productive elements to prepare for a resettlement program that would begin 2 days later. The new ruling filled the ghetto with widespread panic. Jews in the ghetto who didn't have jobs tried to quickly find them. The head of the Jewish Council committed suicide after being recruited to organize and oversee the deportations. The very same day, a group of council members and other leaders gathered together to debate if they should follow orders or not. The majority vote was to not follow them.
It was assumed that the Germans would only deport 60,000 Jews before stopping the deportations. Between the July meeting and mid-September, the Nazis ended up deporting more than 300,000 Jews from the ghetto.
Most of them were deported to Treblinka, where they were sent to their demise. In the fall of 1942, almost all the divisions in the ghetto decided to fight back against the future deportations. Each political party created their own battle group, which came under central command of 24-year-old named Morvetzai Onilevich.
Armed resistance got ready for the upcoming conflict by constructing different shelters such as bunkers and other buildings. In January 1943, the Nazis shocked the Jewish forces, immediately deporting over 6,000 Jews out of the ghetto. Only a few days later, on January 18th, a German police officer was terribly hurt by Jewish fighters, and the planned mass deportation came to a sudden stop.
Angered by the incident, Nazi leader Heinrich Himmler commanded the extermination of the ghetto. The nearly empty district was then to be demolished to the ground.